Hi, I'm Phyllis from southernfrugal.com, and we are ready to make a cake. First one I've made in what seems like months, but Bryson Baked Goods sent me a recipe from his great-grandmother, and it's just a prune cake. And I have a recipe for a prune cake, which is already packed away, by the way, and the recipe I have calls for 2 cups of junior baby food prunes, which would be very mashed up kind of. But his recipe calls for 2 cups of prunes cooked and mashed. And I found out that, let me find the thing, the container I got was 18 ounces. And it doesn't take quite the whole thing to do the prunes. But what you do with the prunes is boil some water, maybe a cup, cup and a half, cup and a third, and put the prunes in it. And what I did is let it come to a boil, let them boil just a minute or so, and then I just put the lid on it and cut the burner off and leave them sitting there, I don't know, maybe half an hour, and they'll soak up whatever water they're going to soak up. Now, Bryson's great-grandmother's recipe calls for well, I think he probably added this because they didn't have microwaves back then, but he did it in the microwave. But anyway, however you want to do it, you end up with 2 cups of cooked and mashed prunes. So anyway, we're going to go ahead, and I do think I'm going to try to copy the recipe and paste it into the description of this video, so you'll have his exact recipe that he got from his great-grandmother, I believe. Now, the other thing is, I don't think back in his great-great-grandmother's time they had vegetable oil, so she probably used a cup of butter. I dare say she wouldn't have used lard, but I would say she probably used a cup of butter, and that would probably be really good. But anyway, this sort of reminds me of a carrot cake. Just parts of it remind me of a carrot cake. But anyway, the recipe I have came from the 1960s, but it was probably a version of this same pound cake. So what you need to do is grease and flour a tube pan. Now, when I'm doing a pound cake, I almost always line it with wax paper, not the parchment paper. I use wax paper because it's more pliable. First you grease the pan, then you put the paper, and then grease it again, and dust it with flour. That way there's no way it'll stick, and I'm all for no way sticking, because believe me, over the many years I've been baking, I have had cakes stick, and it's really sad. So I always line it, and I will leave a link down below for a video I did on how to line a tube pan. Alright, you want to preheat your oven to 300 degrees. And this cake is going to cook for 1 hour and 1/4, or I guess 1 hour and 15 minutes. Alright, we're ready to get started now. Alright, so what I've got is 2 cups of sugar, just plain ordinary sugar, and 1 cup of oil. So I'm going to dump that all in. And I'm just going to mix that up. Now his recipe says to cream this, but there's kind of not really any way to cream oil and sugar. It doesn't cream very well, really. So I'm just going to stir it in with the spatula. Now if you're using butter, it would cream really good. Alright, and so to this we're going to add 3 large eggs is what I'm using, and I'm going to have to use a mixer for this, so y'all excuse me noise that this is going to make. I'm just using my hand mixer for this. Lay this down right here, and so we're going to put them in one at a time. So I'm going to turn my camera off for just a minute and turn this mixer up on high and really get it fluffed up. We'll be right back. Let's just move y'all a little closer so you can see. There we go. Alright, we'll be right back. Alright, we mixed this up for a couple of minutes now. With the oil, the sugar's not going to probably ever completely dissolve, but you want it so that it looks sort of a lemony color. And then we're just going to wait and we'll mix the rest of the stuff in a minute. So what we're going to do next is we're going to sift 2 cups of flour, and I did measure this without sifting it, okay? Make sure you note that. I just took it out of the bag, and this is what I used. You want 2 cups of all-purpose flour. So I'm going to dump that in my sifter. Into that I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. It's just regular ground cinnamon. And 1 teaspoon of ginger, ground ginger. 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And 1/2 teaspoon of regular table salt. Okay? So we're going to dump that in, and we're just going to sift these ingredients together. And by the way, I got me a new sifter. I actually bought another kind of sifter. Actually, I brought it out here. See this sifter? Yeah, I got this at Walmart. It's got 2 different layers of the screening in there, and the only problem with it is you have to keep going like that, and it's real slow, and my hand got really tired. So I ordered this one with the little turn style thing in it, and it sifts much faster. Probably not as well as the other sifter, but I just don't have time nor the strength to just keep pulling that little lever back on it. This really sifts it much faster. And when I put this on my website, I'm going to try to find a sifter like this. It's actually a Norpro stainless steel sifter, and put it in the products I recommend, because this is the same kind I had before that I'd had for many years, but it actually started rusting on some of the metals, so I got rid of it and thought I was doing really good to buy this one until I used it the first time. And y'all see that it's got 2 sets of little gears there, you know, and it's got 2 layers of the screening in there, and you just have to keep going like this, and it just takes forever. So that didn't work for me. Alright, so now what we're going to do, let me get back to the directions. We cream the oil and sugar, add eggs 1 at a time, and I'm going to add the vanilla now, and it calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And please try to use the pure stuff, because a lot of people can tell the difference, and I certainly can, in the imitation vanilla. If you can't tell the difference, then the other kind's fine. And by the way, this is not Aldi's brand, but let me show you Aldi's brand. I don't remember how much this was, but it was a lot more than this one. This is Aldi's brand, and it's 2 ounces. This one's 2 ounces, and this one costs double what this costs. This was $2.39 at Aldi. I just had to put that plug in there, y'all, because most of the time vanilla is vanilla. Alright, so we're ready to mix this up now. Put the vanilla in. Alright, that's good enough there. Alright, so we've sifted our flour, salt, baking soda, and spices together. And now we're going to add this to the buttermilk. We're going to add the flour and the buttermilk alternately. Now this is 1 cup of whole buttermilk and the flour mixture. So we're going to do that, and I probably better do that with my spatula rather than with the mixer. We'll put the mixer in again at the end. All right, so I'm going to start out with flour. Mix that around. And of course it already smells good with the spices and the vanilla. Now what the ginger does is ginger tones down the sharpness of cinnamon. You can't really tell there's ginger there, but that's usually what happens when you use ginger. I always try to use ginger when I use cinnamon. All right, so now we're ready for a little bit of the buttermilk. Just mix that in. See, if you put your mixer in now, it's going to splash everywhere. And then we're going to go back with more of the flour mixture. Now we're just going to go right back with the buttermilk again. Mix that in. And then back with more flour. Nope, I jiggled y'all, didn't I? Sorry. Now we'll put the mixer in this as soon as I get it so it won't fog up everywhere. I'll put the balance of the buttermilk in. Also, you wouldn't want to mix it too much once you add the flour. All right, now we're going to put the balance of the flour in. Once that flour gets wet, we'll be ready to put the little hand mixer in it again. All right. We're ready to put the mixer in just for a little while, so y'all hang on. Now we're going to add the 2 cups of prunes that have been cooked and then mashed up. And again, you want to take them out of the water that you cooked them in and mash them up. I used my potato masher and just used the pot that they were cooked in and drained the water out. So we're going to add the 2 cups. Mix that up. Now I guess you could put those prunes in like a blender or something like that, but I thought maybe they'd be better off just mashed like the directions called for. Alright, let's see if we can put the mixer back in for just a second or two. That ought to do it, because we do not want to over-mix. Now this cake is going to have a buttermilk sauce that's going to go on it. Wait a minute, I didn't get out all my prunes. Look at that, I left some in there. All of those in. Alright, so now we're going to add 1 cup of nuts. Now Bryson's recipe, great-grandmother's recipe, calls for 1 cup of walnuts. So I'm using 1 cup of pecans, and what I did was took a heaping teaspoon of the flour and just coated my nuts so they wouldn't all sink to the bottom when this cake is cooking. So I just dump that in and just fold these nuts in. I usually dredge the nuts in flour when they go in a cake, just for the reason that so they will not all sink to the bottom of the cake. Okay, y'all, that's it. It's a pretty thick batter. And again, we've got the oven preheated to 300 degrees, and we're going to cook these for 1 hour and 15 minutes. And then we'll check it to see if it's done, because every oven, of course, is different. So let's see if I can dump this in. It's going to be a big cake, y'all. But Bryson says he thinks we'll like it, me and Mr. Bucky, and I'm thinking we're going to like it too. I can tell you it smells really good. And I don't think it will be overly sweet because of the prunes. And by the way, the prunes are sun-dried and unsweetened. Alright, that should do it. So I'll spill some nuts there. We'll put those in. Alright, so we're ready to put this in the oven, and again, 300 degrees for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. Make sure your oven is preheated, and if you choose not to line your pan, make sure you grease it really good and dust it with flour. Alright, when this gets done, we'll be back and we'll make the sauce that's going to go on it, or the icing. We'll be back. Alright, we just took the cake out of the oven, and in my oven it actually cooked for 1 hour and 20 minutes. And I put a toothpick in it and pulled it out, made sure it was clean. That's why I had to cook about 5 more minutes, because every oven now is different. So what we're going to do is just sit it over on this little rack over here, right there, to cool. And we're going to go ahead and fix the icing to go on it. So I have melted 1 stick of butter, which is 1/2 cup. I'm going to go ahead and turn my burner up on medium high, and to this I'm going to add 1.5 cups of sugar. That's good enough. 1 cup and 1/2 cup. And to this, we're going to add 1 cup of buttermilk, and I've got my burner on sort of medium high to start out. So that's 1 cup of buttermilk, and I'm using whole buttermilk. And let me read the directions here. So to bring it to a hard boil, and I need to stir it while that's happening. So we're just going to stir this and wait for it to come to a hard boil. And when that happens, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. That's this right here, not baking powder now, baking soda. Alright, we'll be back when this comes to a big hard boil. Be right back. Okay, we're at a hard boil now, and I'm going to turn my burner down to simmer. I'm probably going to have to take it off the burner for just a second. So we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And I'm going to actually take it off the burner because I know it's going to foam way up when I put this in there. So you want to let it foam up. See how it's going to rise up? So you have to really watch your heat at this point. Now, because I've got a cooktop the cooktop doesn't cool down as fast as if you were cooking on gas. You could just cut that burner down. So you don't want it to boil over, I'm sure. So now the directions say to simmer it for about 3 minutes. So I'm going to wait. It's still going to foam up some. So I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes. I'm probably going to have to keep taking it off that burner since that burner is so hot. You don't want it to foam all up, so my suggestion is that you do a lot of stirring at this point. Alright, we'll be back after 3 minutes. We'll be right back. Alright, it's been right at 3 minutes and we've let this simmer. Now you have to be really careful with this and make sure you have a big enough pot, because I think if you don't watch it, it'll go right over the top of the pot. So now we're going to add 1 tablespoon of light corn syrup right there. Now I've got it on simmer, but that burner is still mighty hot. So I'm going to have to take it off the burner a little bit over here and pour that corn syrup in. Now what I think the corn syrup is going to do is keep the this little icing type sauce from getting sugary once it gets cool on the cake. Alright, so I've got my burner completely off now, but again, this is a cooktop, so that burner stays hot for a while. Alright, so I'm going to now add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. That's 1, 2. Yeah, so this is going to be a pretty rich cake, I think. And I also think it's going to be very moist. So I'm just going to mix that in. Get that corn syrup and the vanilla thoroughly mixed in, and we're ready to pour half of this over the cake. Alright, so I'm going to just turn this up a little bit and maybe move y'all in a little closer. There. And what the instructions say, take a meat fork and poke a bunch of holes in the top of the cake. Like that. And then what you're going to do is pour half of this mixture over the top of the cake. Take the spoon out of there. I'm just going to pour half of it now. It's all foamy. Alright. A little more. Alright, that's about half of it. So we'll stick some more little holes in it and let that icing type sauce run all down in the cake. Alright, so now we're going to let that cool, and I don't think we'll be able to let it cool too long because Mr. Bucky's already saying he's ready for a piece of cake, y'all. Alright, so we're going to let it cool a little while, and then we'll be back and dump it out and pour the rest of this sauce on the other side of it. We'll be back. Alright, we have dumped the cake out. It's not completely cooled, y'all. We just couldn't wait that long. And now I'm going to put some more of the sauce on the other side of it. And let that soak in. And by the way, this sauce is absolutely delicious. It's really the same kind of sauce that I put on my apple cake. Very same kind. So we're just dribbling it all over the cake. Let it run down the side. Alright, I've got some left here, which I will put over the cake when I slice it. So we're going to go ahead and slice this so Mr. Bucky can have a piece and I'm going to have a piece. So we'll be right back. Alright, we got the cake all sliced. I'll let you look at a slice of it. You'll see that looks very, very moist. So let's see what it tastes like. Very nice. It's good. I'm not a big milk drinker, but you're going to have a glass of milk with this cake. It's very rich. Okay, I'm going to take a piece to Mr. Bucky. He's in watching TV. Anyway, Bryson, thanks for the recipe. The cake is quite good and super moist. Gotta have some more milk. This is really rich. All right, y'all. We will see you next time, and I will try to copy the recipe from my messages and put it in the description below. And it's quite good, actually. It's very, very rich. It would be a great cake to have during the holidays. Be great for that. All right, we will see y'all next time. And thanks, Bryson, for the recipe. Bye now.